as I watch people come in, I could just see people with tears in their eyes and just, it was very emotional for me to see people watch themselves and have that emotion.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing. So what brought you to have this collaboration this summer?
Go
And
ahead, Ancinetta.
the wise leadership of Pastor Kelly. When we partner and he had this ideal, it just brilliant. I every day since it's happened, I just am very grateful, and words cannot express the gratitude that I have in this being my first nonprofit, my first partner, and for it to be so successful with his vision of how he's seen it going. And it's just, I don't know if he knows his vision has taken on another life. And I'm just so excited and ready for the work ahead. This is giving me strength in the struggle of ongoing in the organization.
Let me just add to that and say that I think a piece of my mind's best use in the world is to come alongside people like Ancinetta and Northside Culture who are doing good things, who are engaged in the community and invested in making a difference, and for us to come alongside them and try to amplify and articulate that work through the storytelling and art that we do. And I think this was a beautiful example of it. We hope to create a body of work that helps Ancinetta tell the story of the good work that they're doing in North Minneapolis. And I'll just add to that. I think I met PK 8 or 10 years ago. We were both presenting at a conference, and every once in a while reached out and said, "Hey, we ought to get together sometime," but life just made that not happen. My wife and I had lived on the road for full time for 2.5 years during the pandemic, gathering stories. Came home and I said, "God darn it, I am going to sit down with this guy and have a conversation." And we finally sat down for coffee. And at that coffee, he said, "Hey, I got an idea." And that was the introduction to Ancinetta. And I'm learning that when PK says, "I have an idea," that you ought to sit down, strap in, and get ready for a ride, because good things can happen.
So the last question I have for y'all both is, what were your goals and what did you think of the final outcome of this project?
The goal for me was to have that community part of the organization, just starting off to see how community can be involved and how their input is important to the organization. I had no idea that the goal is a work in progress. It will continue. We'll be reaching that goal for the entire process of this entity. Because the community is a living entity, so it's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah. For me, my goal was to show up and to listen and to learn. A piece of my mind is really in the business of hearing people's stories, of trying to get my filter out of the way so that people can share their truths. And I feel like we did it. At the end of the day, I want people to feel heard and seen and valued. At the end of the day, I want the people who participated, but also the other people who see this body of work, to see the community and to see the individuals in new ways, like to understand a deeper connection and to understand a deeper common humanity. And I feel, man, the energy in that room when we had those people in there looking at that art, I feel like we did it. But like you said, that is just the start. And I feel like there's a lot of ways this can ripple out into the world.
Yeah, it was like a shared understanding that art has the power to illuminate our minds and spirit. And the whole time during the program, I kept hearing John say, it doesn't happen without the community. And it's so true. It just is nothing without the community. And the community showed up and showed out.
Yeah, it's an exercise in faith and an exercise in trust because like Ancinetta said, I say this is public art and it only works when the public shows up. And man, they show up. They showed up and they continue to show up. And that gives me hope in where we're going.
And the comments, how can I be in it? How can I get a chance to have a picture and say something? Is it too late? So
See, we stirred the pot. Now we got to come back.
Well, thank you guys for sharing. I think if Hala is here, yeah, we'll be talking a little bit about our experience doing this project with y'all. Is Hala here?
There she is.
All right. Yeah, Hala, what were your thoughts doing this project?
We were definitely, as the CLNE Summer Squad, we were fortunate enough to like work with both Ancinetta and John. This was like okay, first of all, we had our own like side project to do alongside with this project. But because this was so like interesting and intriguing, we completely kind of like forget about our side project. That's how amazing it was for us to do this project. So our role in it was just basically when we had the studio times for us to go about and like chat with people who were around who might be interested in. Basically, we were gathering the people, like we were inviting the people to come answer the question. We ourselves at the CLNE Squad also participated in it, which was also an amazing opportunity. Besides that, we were just always just there for the ride. Like, I don't know what else we were doing, but we were just there for like just to watch the whole project. It was actually amazing. There were a couple times where we were thinking like, oh my gosh, we're not gathering enough people. I don't know if this is gonna work. So we were so scared to like disappoint everyone. But towards the end, like the outcome, oh my goodness, beautiful. Like you can literally just watch it. Like it was like a metamorphosis. It's like a butterfly just coming out of its shell. So it was amazing. That was our role in it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I had a sort of backseat role in this project. But I think overall it was pretty mesmerizing for me to see that my peers were so motivated by this project. And not only my peers, but the public as well. Right. The Northside community really showed out. And as Ancinetta said, more individuals when they seen their friends and families up on that wall were like, whoa, how can I do that? How can I be a part of that? And I think just having that be a moment for the community really speaks volume to what is needed and what people really want. So I think for me, just being on the back end, I really appreciated that. And I think the turnout for the event itself was really well put. I think um, Hala and the Summer Squad and I and Rachel and all these other people who were working, and John and Ancinetta and PK, everybody, right? We really put our all into this project. And I think it really showed. So the feedback that we got was that this needs to happen more often. And I think I just was in awe of it. And I really appreciated having just that moment itself. So thank you, John and Ancinetta, for providing that for us.
Again, I would like to thank Pastor Kelly for making the difference and having those interns there, because each one of those interns, I was able to see the leadership come out in them, and I was able to see them push themselves and take themselves out of their comfort zone to do this project. And I know AD, he had an icebreaker that has me remembering Hala, Roya, Toby, Peace, Masa May, and AD, and I just love it. And that's one of my best pictures of 2023 was taking a picture with the girls. So it's just been a lovely, wonderful experience.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, yeah, so this up next, yeah, I'll let Hala go ahead.
Oh, where they sites?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's okay if you don't have the slides, no worries. Yeah.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick and add
Mhm.
that I just dropped a link into the chat where if people after this session want to go and see the whole collection on our website of stories that people shared, you can just click through that link and see the whole body of work.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
Okay, so for now, in for the next 5 minutes, we're gonna do a little writing workshop. Sorry for y'all that do not like to write, but it's gonna be very quick. So the question that the people were trying to answer in the project is like, what gives you strength in the midst of a struggle? This is a very thoughtful question, and it had me like in my thoughts like a lot. So we want you guys to take like few minutes real quick and like write your thoughts or your answer on a piece of paper. If not, if you like know your answer on top of your head, you can just reflect on it for the next 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, I hope that was a very reflective time for everybody to just think about, the question in depth and then come up with answers. What we have up next is if we could go on to the next slide. Yeah. So now we'll be going into small groups for about 25 minutes or so. And so as you just jot it down on a piece of notebook or somewhere, what gives you strength in the midst of struggle. Really internalize that question when you go into your groups, because you'll be sharing that question or your answers with the group. So as far as the conversation guidelines go, introduce yourself, choose any and all questions from the list, focus on listening well, hear from each other in your group, speak from your own perspective with an I statement. And then the questions that we have that can also build into more conversations are what gives you strength in the midst of struggle, what in tonight's reflections reflected or connected with your experience, what challenged you, what were you curious about now? Yeah, so that said, we'll be going into breakout rooms.
That's what we've just been having people do, is come up with their own response to the question of what gives you strength in the midst of struggle. So that's what we're hoping to discuss when everyone comes back.
And that's what I was just discussing, having that option and having good news to share and being intentional about texting it. As a matter of fact, I just got a email. Pastor Kelly, you might have been a part of sending this, or you've seen it from Curtis D. Young, the Minnesota Council of Churches, and they're trying to gather people over at the Wilder Foundation this month to have a dinner and a conversation about building wealth among Black folks in Minnesota. And so I don't know if you got a chance to look at your email today. It might be in there already.
I'll check after the program. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been sending the link out because I think it's limited to maybe 50 people. But what's really nice is like they give you a nice stipend of, I think it's $150 to come and attend the dinner. And they're looking to invest in entrepreneurs, construction, and new home ownership to build wealth. And so what I did is I clicked on the form that they asked you to fill out in the email, and then I've just been texting it to people all day. So that's how I breathe, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you, Rosina. I think they're re-entering into the program now. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Pastor. Well, we hope you guys had meaningful conversations with each other and were able to reflect. I certainly did with my group. It was a really fascinating conversation, to say the least. Yeah, so up next, what we'll be doing is we'll just connect with everyone in this call. Yeah, so so we call that a reconnect. And basically, we're just going to ask you to type your insights in the chat if you don't wish to speak. And then also raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak. Yeah. And so then the questions that we have for the entire group is, again, what gives you strength in the midst of struggle? What in tonight's reflection connected with your experience? And what challenged you? What are you curious about? And then I had another question too. Was what did you appreciate about the conversations you've had in your small groups? So yeah, whoever would like to ask any of those or answer any of those questions, feel free to let us know. I can start. And then I'd like to call Hala afterwards. But yeah, so I had a conversation with Peg and Becky. And I think what I really appreciated about our conversation was that we were really honest with ourselves. I think even from the introduction and talking about our struggles as human beings, the universal struggle of what it means to be a human being and all of that that comes with it. I think right from the get-go, I really took in what they said, and it allowed me to feel even safer in that space, to be able to share my own truth and share um, what I feel was going on with me. So how I found struggle, or excuse me, I found strength in the midst of struggle. And yeah, so I think that was what I really resonated with. Yeah, yeah. I like
Okay, so I had an amazing, lovely conversation with Perna. Am I saying the name right? And I also learned a new word today. I will let her speak later. But we kind of like we touched on upon like how as individuals we're trying to like do better for the world, and this could be a good way to, like you can get strength by like looking at like not only your struggles but other people's struggles. But my answer for the question was, I changed it from the original because I participated in the program, was the fact that I have like having faith, which a lot of people like also answer in their like in the project photo to like BK, Bebet. So I resonated with that like so much because the whole like idea of like everything's gonna get better, nothing is temporary when you're in the midst of a struggle, which I personally think is faith, is what usually like gives me strength and like gets me through like stuff. But I'm trying to like share my conversation, but we were chatting too much. Sorry. And if my partner wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about what we talked about, that would be amazing. Yes.
Well, I was kind of rambling on. I just said I wasn't quite sure how relevant my conversation was, because
Yes, it was very.
sometimes the struggles are just small struggles every day that you get through. And the one thing I talked about is being finished. There's a thing that you call sisu, and sisu is determination, it's grit, it's bravery. And so every day I feel like, okay, I've got that DNA in me. And I know there's some people that snap a bracelet to remind them sometimes. So to say, really, do I have the DNA, or do I just say I do and then I act on it? But so that's just something that I kind of I feel like I daily draw on and use. And then I guess the other thing, again, not knowing exactly what we're talking about here, but just the act of gratitude, everyday gratitude. And I think of the pandemic, the cashiers, wherever we went, hardworking cashiers who had to be there, and just the gratitude to everybody wherever you go, because they have a hard job.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you. Well, I would like to also invite my members, but I don't want to put no pressure on anybody. But whoever wants to speak, feel free. Yeah, please go ahead, Becky.
I shared in the group that when I read Ancinetta's name as one of the speakers for this evening, I thought to myself, and this was a number of weeks ago, gosh, that's a familiar name. Why do I know her name? And I thought, well, maybe she's been a speaker before. Anyway, as soon as you opened your mouth and you said something, Ancinetta, I thought, oh, it's the prayer tent. That's where it is. And I have such warm memories and grateful memories of your being a convener of the prayer tent, which I tried to attend diligently. So that was such a nice moment for me to say, oh, I'm back in the prayer tent. I'm back in the prayer tent with Ancinetta. The other thing we talked about was just how inspiring the mutual love and respect that's just evident between yourself, Ancinetta, and John. I mean, it just oozes, and the excitement that you have for this project. And I'm just sad that I missed out in seeing it live, but I will go to the website and check it out in more detail. So thank you. Thanks for this evening.
Yeah. Do we have any other individuals? Is it okay if we call on y'all? Maybe just if there's any shyness. Is it all right if we call on y'all?
Please do. I just don't want to be the person to call on them because it's giving me PTSD from college days. When I didn't want to answer questions, and professors would call on me.
Okay, I think. What about Dan? Dan, what do you think? Or what were your thoughts?
My breakout room was I kind of stayed behind but we did have a good conversation. I'll tell you my response to the question, which I've been thinking about ever since I went to the exhibit last week. For me, being a white man, thinking about even what is the struggle that we're really talking about here is a important question for me to kind of live with. But I think for me, it's being vulnerable with another person about what I'm afraid of, what my fears are and what the struggle is from my perspective. And just that's a difficult thing to do. And it's an easy thing to hide and to kind of just stay comfortable. But to be able to acknowledge struggle, to be able to acknowledge what I'm afraid of to another person, almost always turns into that person, giving me strength. I realize I'm not the only one, and I realize there's strength in that back and forth and the encouragement. So that's what I'd say. And I think that's consistent with my, what I believe and with my faith and my experience.
Yeah. Would you like to call on somebody else to share?
Let's see. I feel like I wasn't in a room with anybody, so I'm a bit risky here. But Shelby, I see you coming here all the time. I'm wondering what you think. Would you care to come off of mute?
I think you're muted.
Here you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things I've become so aware of at age 90, I was able to travel for my work till I was 78 and close down my business when I was 80. And now at 90, I have a lot of pain, a lot of physical pain, and I have mild cognitive impairment. There's damage in my brain. And so sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I say, oh, why even bother to get out of bed? And then suddenly I see have to speak. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
Hear me?
mhm.
Yeah.
Did you say you can hear me?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear you, Shelby. Would love to hear
Good.
you.
And then I think about all the people I see at the border. I think about the fact that there are 4 million little children who live in countries where there's war. 4 million little kids live in countries where there's war. And I say, Shelby, get over it. Yes, I have pain. Yes, I call my brain Miss Goofy because there's damage in my brain. But Miss Goofy and I manage through. And I have every reason to be grateful for everything in my life. Everything in my life. And I'm very conscious, and one reason I continue with this is that through joining Redeemer, I became aware of whole other kinds of life. Maybe I said before that I grew up in North Dakota. My grandfather got homestead land, free, 160 acres. We never once heard about the genocide of Native Americans. We never once knew why there were reservations. Had no idea what they were. Total silence on all of that. So it took me years to become alert and aware, and then invest myself in other people's stories and helping them move into communities to be supportive in areas of passion for themselves. That was really the work I did.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shelby, for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm also curious too. Dawn, I've seen you throughout several of these meetings, and I'm wondering what thoughts you might have.
I'm aware of a lot of unearned advantages that I've experienced and gifts. I think, all of life is a gift. And, as far as, at the time of struggle, I have a gift of a wife and family and friends. And another gift that I've received somewhere along the line is the confidence that regardless what'll happen, I'll have the wherewithal to deal with it, and it's going to be okay. And I've had some challenges in life, and I felt that it's going to be okay. And so, as far as how you deal with struggle, that's about the long and short of it.
So if you were diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you think everything would be okay?
I think you're muted, Dawn.
I can't answer that hypothetical question, but I just had a heart attack a few days ago, and I had that confidence that regardless of what's going to happen, I'll have the wherewithal to deal with it, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. Yeah. it's yeah. No, I think one thing I always admire about these come-togethers is the vulnerability that we always have and the strength to always tell our stories, no matter how hard. So, I appreciate all of us for sharing our journeys with different things and how we are, um, let's say, recovering or getting through those struggles that we face. So, thank you again. Yeah, if yeah, Hala, would you like to take it on?
Yes. So now that concludes our reflection and debrief. If we can have these lights up, let me pull up the slides. First of all, I want to thank everyone for taking the time of their day to join us and like put effort into this. Coming up on 21st September, we have come together, same thing, but on to like 21st September, and it will be a different topic, different everything, good company. So I hope to see all of y'all there. And yes, we just want to thank our sponsors and donors who also like sponsor the event that we put up as well. It's called Minnesota Humanities Center and the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment. So we just want to take a little time to like acknowledge them as well. But I do appreciate all of y'all for being here. BK, do you have any closing words that you would like to say?
Yeah, I would love it if Ancinetta and John might have opportunity to share their experience or any last words from John and Ancinetta. Thank you all for a wonderful, rich program, and thank you, Squad, for your leadership, AD and Hala. Yeah.
Ancinetta, go ahead if you have something you want to share to close.
Sure, I like to say, Becky was point on when she said that me and you connected. I feel like I've known you forever, John, and I've just met you during this process. This has been wonderful. I appreciate the recognition from Becky from the prayer tent. I mean, that has touched my soul and has given me different meaning in life and community, a very positive one. And I really appreciate everybody that I've met through here and a couple of regulars that I see on this program here. I love it. And I just see myself being a part of this as long as it exists.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ancinetta. And I just want to add that as I go through the world, I see so many times when we are asked to put our defenses up, to protect ourselves, to hold certain things away. And the more I work on this project and the more I engage in things like this, the more I begin to understand that when we do that, we also hold out the very best of human relationships that are available to us. And so part of this process and what I saw happen in North Minneapolis is that willingness to let our guard down and that willingness to be vulnerable with one another. And Ancinetta, how quickly then we can build these strong connections. And I'm deeply grateful for that. So thank you.
And I want to just say, Don, I'm glad to see you recovering well. God bless you in your journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to put an exclamation mark to that too, particularly Don and Shelby. And as AD said, sharing your vulnerability. And that really is the heart of Come Together, is where you can really let go of the layers and, share the vulnerability of our common humanity. And I love the question that what gets us through our struggle? And ultimately, it's being together. And so thank you all very much for continuing your faithfulness and coming together, and hoping that this might be like a flicker or spark that might grow in our community and in our world. I'm not trying to close the door, but I would just thank you, John and Ancinetta, Hala and AD for convening tonight, and for sharing all of us to share in the celebration that you did with a piece of my mind and a Northside culture. Thank you.
Don't you know, we're talking about a revolution. Sounds